Any questions?
Yeah, from my point of view, I was wondering when you were talking about management, you said it would be good to get a trusted third party. Do you know of any trusted third parties that people might be able to call on for management of SuDS and green infrastructure generally?
Bodies that I know that we've got confidence that would accord with the definition of responsible would be Wild Ground, Amphibian Reptile Conservation, where they're specifically um, a known Great Crested Newts interest. So
And
there are already a number of voluntary bodies. Amphibian Reptile Conservation has guidance on SuDS on their website. Wild Ground manage a whole range of sites, some of which have water attenuation purposes.
brilliant. And Wild Ground, they're a non-government organisation, a voluntary body,
Yes, yes.
and they'll actually do the contracting for you if you have a large SuDS site with
I suspect
amphibian
they
or
would.
reptile.
Yes,
Excellent.
and the same with the Amphibian Reptile Conservation. I suspect
Okay, that they might actually be able to act as a contractor.
potentially yes.
That's fantastic news, right? And well, we've been
And
addressing that one.
they have they have the right skills and competences.
That's wonderful. So, Mark, I wonder if I could get you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Morning, Pete. Morning, Matt. Thanks for the presentation. Really useful, really interesting. Probably touches on what you were just talking about. As I joined this session, took me a little longer to switch between the two as I'd like. Sustainable drainage approving bodies in Wales. So the SABs now are obviously approving new drainage applications.
Yes.
We've obviously we're trying to push, certainly in Caerphilly, where I'm from, we're trying to push for gully-free approaches, but it can be difficult in some instances to see completely free gully-free developments in all locations and all applications. But it is something that we push for. Obviously, approving and inspecting construction is one thing. Maintaining systems is something that we'll also be looking at as we go forward. So the organizations that you were just talking about will be really useful, but obviously if they're not on council procurement frameworks, then it could be difficult for us to utilize those. But also the SABs are responsible. So things that would really help, I think, SABs would be some of the guidance, links and flags to some of the guidance that you're talking about, some of those key considerations.
Yes.
And possibly one for you and I, Pete, to talk about in more detail as we go forwards is SAB focused and SAB specific training for looking after systems with that focus on creating the biodiversity, but ensuring that it works and it functions for the long term, ideally with a site-based component built into it as well.
I can see that.
I think that's,
sorry, Matt.
I was going to say that the other point is that I've seen very few SAB license applications for dealing with managing of SuDS schemes where protected amphibians are present, or indeed it could be species like water vole, etc. And so that's again, I suspect that the SAB boards haven't appreciated that side of the legislation that needs to be also considered.
Yes, it's possible that it's early. Again, speaking from Caerphilly's perspective, we've only now got 2 sites that we're looking after, but one of them possibly would have the potential to support amphibians. So, it is something that would be relatively new to us in terms of the licensing side of things there, not necessarily new to the authority.
If you're wanting method statement templates,
yeah,
Denbighshire Countryside Service have got some brilliant ones on GCN.
Okay, that's really good to know.
And certainly, from the northeast, I'm based. I'm based in the northeast, and certainly there's good examples. Certainly in Denbighshire, and not bad in Flintshire.
That's okay. That's great. That's great really to know, Matt. if those are available online, I'm going to ask you to send me an email with the links so I can send those out to the whole of the Wales Green Infrastructure Forum. And
I'm
Mark,
not sure if they are. I'll email Denbighshire and see if they don't if they're happy to share them. I suspect they are actually, but I can't speak for them. It's their meta statement. Although I was the one who was probably heavily involved in commenting on it and sorting the format. So leave it with me. I'll see what I can do.
That's
equally,
fantastic.
Equally under the SAB Society for Wales, which we formed at the start of this year, Catherine Hughes is from Denbighshire, and she's part of our executive board. So if they're not publicly available, then I'm sure there will be a link internally within Denbighshire to help share some knowledge that Catherine can then share wider. That would be really useful. So thank you for that.
I've got a question for Mark. If we hold this All Wales NRW and SAB meeting that we've been talking about, would it be helpful to spend maybe an hour of that on a training session for SABs to do with European protected species?
Personally, I would say yes. I would imagine that a lot of the SABs, again, similar to the discussion that was going on before we switched from the presentation to the Q&A, I would imagine that a lot of SABs could come probably from a civil engineering and drainage design background more so than a ecology or landscape background. And so this would be an area where SABs will still be developing skills and knowledge. So yeah, personally, I think it would be an excellent idea.
Fantastic. Right. Well, let's get on and get that session organised, I think, for the autumn now.
Yes.
Matt, you might have another gig coming up.
Oh, well, add it to the list. I'm more than happy to do that. I think that we do. I have seen over the years things get better and better, whether it's biosecurity risk assessments, for example, and things like being aware of the impact on gullypots, etc. I think Jill was making reference to the work that I've been pushing on this. I can remember the first time there was a Batson Roads, was it, Jill? And during that, I hijacked, gave a presentation on amphibians and gullypots, and it was like to my mind, it was one of the first eye-opening meetings.
No, you're right, Matt. You did it. It was a wildlife and road seminar. We used to do one in the north and had one in the mid. And yes, I think you were the first person who really raised my attention to the impacts of whether we can do different things with offset curbs. But I think that has had knock-on effects. And I think within the truck road agents, we're actually doing quite a bit. So we're looking at amphibian roadkill spots. We put lots of retrofit ladders in. And we are, and I don't know if anyone else could experience them, we're in the process of trying to get the go-ahead from Welsh Government to use the ACO climate tunnels in conjunction with fencing to get some safer crossing points. The problem is if you're the first ones doing it in Wales, everybody's nervous to put them in with all the sort of low class ratings and things, so it'd be good to know if others have got experience of them. But and I don't know if you're aware of the work that South Wales Truck Road Agency have been doing with the PhD student getting the a design of gully pot with a inbuilt escape. So we are working quietly in the background doing more than nothing. So you did start it off all those years ago, Matt.
Yeah, and interestingly, I don't know if you put it up, picked up, Jill. I think was it the Newtown bypass? The SuDS pond there now. GCN have been recorded in there, and in terms of records management, we now have the Wales GCN monitoring scheme, and I would actively encourage, if you have SuDS ponds and you're monitoring amphibians, use that single database, even if you don't have GCN yet, so to speak. And was it Mark? I know that I've been uploading data into that database for Caerphilly, so there are some Caerphilly sites.
Here we are. That's good to know. Jill, as well, if some of that information and those links can be shared wider, that would be really useful. Because if I take my SAB hat off and put my highways hat on because I work across that area as well. We've got around about 43,000 gully pots in the borough in Caerphilly alone. And obviously, whilst we may see some of them replaced as we see new development or redevelopment, there's going to be tens of thousands of gully pots still in place for decades to come yet. So anything that we can do retrofit wise would be really useful. And just because it's in my head, and I will promise I'll shut up after this, Pete. As well as the rainwater management platform, Syria are working on a project for gully pot maintenance. So anything that can be also fed through to Syria to get them to include in gully pot maintenance processes when they update the guidance, I think that would be really helpful as well.
Well, the one thing
sorry, Matt, I was going to say I don't think I can share much with you, but we did have some reports a few years back in Ceredigion where we did investigated how big a problem we had with amphibians entrapment. We did that over about 3 years. I think the big take-home message was not so much the fact, it was more the type of modern designs of drainage with plastic, shiny plastic materials. So if it was an old-fashioned gully pot design with concrete sides and brick walls and things, they were less of a problem. But these horrible, shiny plastic corrugated pipes seem to be a real problem for wildlife to escape from. So irrespective even of a correlation with habitat type on either side, or even records, we were finding animals trapped in the modern design. So this is why we went down the line, and with our colleagues in South Wales as well, thinking, well, the key to this is trying to get industry to adopt a design that doesn't inherently trap things in the first place, rather than this putting a plaster on it with a retrofit ladder that inevitably has maintenance problems and falls down and gets detached. So I think we've got to, as environmentalists, really push for a change in culture and design. And that's the hard thing to do, rather than coming back and saying, yeah, we'll make it better, when we don't really make it better by retrofitting. As Matt said, ideally you go for SuDS, but I say you have to be careful what you wish for, and the detailing of all these things is so important. So yeah, you have a vegetated swale, but if it all means animals fall then into a great big catch pit, that isn't really doing what we wanted. So it's learning from, and even that could have been retrofitted with maybe an escape at the bottom of a catch pit to get to the outlet pipe. And it's that detailing that people just don't really get. And we have to push harder, I think.
Jill, that's fantastic. If you have any references, any links to any references, please send them to me by, shall we say, 1 o'clock today, and I'll try and put them in the pinned comments on the YouTube channel, so that people have got a permanent record, even those that weren't able to get to this webinar today.
The thing I was going to say was actually having either Wales or GB database of where any impacts on gully pots, just to log the sites and the impacts. That would be an incredibly useful database for the future.
Yeah, so we are capturing this information on GIS layers and things like that, slowly but surely. So I suppose we're making a start.
Oh, and will those be put on?
Approach. Yeah,
will those be put on Data Map Wales?
Probably not at the moment, but we'll have to. Could be in the future.
I think that would be really important as public information. Data Map Wales. Maybe we'll do a webinar on that one day, because it's a resource which I think every other country in the world needs, where an entire nation's geospatial data is available for free for everybody to look at, and you don't even need to know how to use a GIS to get to look at it. Matt, before we run out of time, you mentioned the period when Great Crested Newts in particular would be hibernating, and so they'll be in their hibernacular, and you can manage grasslands and stuff while they're hibernating. Have you noticed any change over the last few years as the climate has become more variable?
Yes, I've found crested newts in ponds on the 25th of December and 1st of January. I'm aware Richard Griffiths has actually found newts throughout the year in ponds. I'm aware where we've had this. I thought last year was a very dry spring. This year, to my mind, was even worse. And it's interesting that we've had records in Cheshire, probably about 10 years ago, of GCN breeding in September or November or October. Now, if you think when we are primary school kids, we get taught that spring is new life. We don't challenge the preconceived idea that breeding can take place at other times. So everything is geared to looking for things during the spring. Now, to my mind, if the summers are going to be too dry, those individuals that breed during the winter, should we say, or the larvae are more likely to survive.
Yeah, so there could actually be selection pressure for
Yes.
Great Crested Newts to change their behavior.
We've had Natterjack breed in September, so but it's not what we're not looking at is that's the thing. We're not looking at things systematically. We were records of frogs breeding in December, is it November in Cornwall in the southwest. So whether there's a change in behaviour, and natural selection could mean that those individuals that breed earlier are more successful. We don't know, but it's an interesting point.
And
on a herp side, obviously, you're probably aware that adder is threatened from lowland Britain. Is predicted to become extinct. Our common lizard. I was at a Bern Convention GB meeting. I represented the UK, and what was being reported by Mediterranean states is common lizard, which gives birth to live young, as a climate adaptation, is now disappearing in southern Europe as a consequence of climate change. In Germany this year, they reported a significant decline in common frog. Of the brown frogs, which I think again is likely to be linked to climate change.
So it looks like we're going to have to rethink some of our blanket guidelines about when it might be suitable to work on these sites.
Yes, or you put it under license and you best available information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're looking at new techniques now, we are now, I don't know how much you're aware, the use of conservation dogs to give an indication of whether the area is clear of species or not.
I hadn't been aware of that. I'm aware of dogs being used for a whole bunch of things, but just quickly in the last 2 minutes, talk us through how that works.
So dogs are now being trained to either look for water voles, for dormice, for bats, for crested newts, and that's an effective way of checking an area. They were this year. Sorry, last year's Eisteddfod, they were used to look for GCN. Given the location of the Eisteddfod, National Eisteddfod was at Wrexham, large area. Dogs were used to confirm the site was clear of newts.
That it seems to me like a complete no-brainer, and I wonder why we haven't done it before. If you've got any links to any contractors, consultants,
I can find that conservation dogs. Yeah, I can sort that out.
Fantastic. And again, I'll put that in the pinned comments on the YouTube channel so that people can get in contact with them whenever they need to.